What's got insane speed and portable enough to fit in your pocket? It's the ACASIS Thunderbolt 5 SSD enclosure, and it's about to level up how you create. What's up? I'm Royce, and welcome to my channel where I talk about all things film and tech. And today, I'm talking about the ACASIS Thunderbolt 5 SSD enclosure. Now, ACASIS did send me this enclosure to try out, but know that all my thoughts and opinions are my own, and ACASIS had no say in what goes into this review, nor did they see this before it went live. I also only do reviews like this on products I can actually utilize in my setup and workflow, so the fact that you're seeing this means I like it, and I think you will too. So first up, let's talk about the design. The ACASIS enclosure is compact and lightweight. It's easy to throw in your bag without adding any extra weight. You got a sturdy metallic finish that not only looks cool with these grill cutouts, but also feels premium in your hand. It also has an adjustable cooling fan to keep temperatures optimal. Now, let's get to the good stuff, the speed. This Thunderbolt 5 enclosure supports up to 80 gigabits a second. So in other words, it supports up to 6,000 megabytes a second of read-write speed. So for those editing 4K, 6K, or even 8K content, this can significantly cut down on your transfer speeds and your export times. And though it is Thunderbolt 5, it's still compatible with Thunderbolt 4 and 3, USB 4, 3.2, 3.1, and 3.0. According to ACASIS, they partnered directly with Intel for in-depth collaboration on their latest chipset that's in this thing to help meet user demands. Now, to reiterate, this is an enclosure, which means you will already need to have or need to buy an NVMe SSD for this to work. It supports PCIe Gen 5 NVMe SSDs, but it's also backwards compatible with Gen 4 and Gen 3. Size-wise, it supports 2280, 60, 42, and 30 SSDs up to 8 terabytes. ACASIS does note that SSDs with integrated heat sinks exceed the enclosure's internal dimensions and are not recommended to use with this enclosure. Now, you can check out some speed tests on their site to get an idea for its performance based on the type of NVMe SSD, but I'll be doing my own speed tests in a moment. Now, installing the NVMe drive is really easy. No screws or anything involved with this. You just lift the bottom part off where it says open, and it comes right off. Then you can simply install the NVMe drive that you have by using the rubber piece in the proper size slot for the drive. It comes with thermal pads that you put at the bottom of the cover. I'm using the Samsung 980 Pro with mine, which is a PCIe Gen 4 SSD, so I'm not using mine to its full potential, but it's good to see how it performs even if you don't have the top of the line SSD. Once you're done, put the bottom cover back on, clicks into place, and you're ready to use it. Now I'll plug in my drive to my computer to test the speed for myself. For this, I'm using a MacBook Pro M4 Max laptop on the latest macOS Tahoe 26.1 software. I'll be using the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test app, which if you're unfamiliar, it's Blackmagic's official app for testing the speed of your drives, and you can see the type of performance you'll get per codec and resolution. I already have the app pointed to my ACASIS drive, so I'll just hit start. And you can see we're good to go no matter what the codec is, which isn't a surprise. However, the read and write speeds seem to be way off here. Hold on. Because according to their site for the 980 Pro SSD, we should be getting closer to about 4800 write and 5400 read speeds instead of this 2200 and 2700 nonsense. Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. This is my fault. I accidentally used my Thunderbolt 4 cable with this instead of my Thunderbolt 5 cable, so let me switch that up. So I kept this mistake in the video because it happens all the time. If you get a drive that is supposed to have a certain speed and you can't seem to get close to that speed, it might come down to the type of cable that you're using. So always check your cables, make sure you're using the right one. Okay, now that the ACASIS drive is plugged in with the Thunderbolt 5 cable, let's hit start. Yeah, see, and there you go. That's what we want to see. 4600 write, 5600 read, which if we go back to their site, is close to what they have listed and tested themselves. Now, I'll do an export speed test. I have a project open I did for a client in DaVinci Resolve. The footage is a mix of 4K and 6K content shot on different cameras, Canon C200, Sony FX6, and a Komodo X. The project in total is about 5.5 minutes long, and I'll be exporting it into H.265 at 4K. So to see the difference, I'll first be exporting to my second drive that I've connected to my computer, which is a Thunderbolt 3 drive. And that gets a read and write speed around 2500 megabytes a second, which is about half of the ACASIS drive. So let's go ahead and hit export. Fast forward to see that it actually took 4 minutes and 2 seconds to export. Now I'll export the same project at the same settings, H.265 4K, but onto my ACASIS drive to see the difference. I'll hit export, fast forward again, and this time we see it took 2 minutes and 43 seconds. Now that might not seem like a lot of time, but that difference starts to add up the longer your project is. So that's important to note for those who may not know, your drive speed can impact your export time. So it's not just about how fast your computer is. Now let's talk about price, and this is where things get a little weird because yes, it is an enclosure that still needs an SSD. And it's currently on sale on ACASIS' website for $224.90. So you would still need to purchase an NVMe SSD separately, and those costs range depending on the type and brand, but let's take my Samsung 980 Pro 2TB for example. That is going for $178 on Amazon. So together that equals out to around $403. Then if we look at comparable Thunderbolt 5 drives on the market now, and first off, there's still not that many. Most options that come up are also enclosures, so always check that to make sure that you're actually getting the drive that you want and it's not just an enclosure. And you see those enclosures are priced around the same or even more expensive without the same flexibility, in my opinion, with drive size and support. But if we look at the two main options right now for full Thunderbolt 5 drives, you have the Sabrent Rocket 2TB, which is $314, and the LaCie Rugged 2TB, which is $339. At first glance, you think, okay, well, going the enclosure route is more expensive, so that doesn't make sense, which is technically true. But one of the benefits of an NVMe drive is by design, it's faster than majority of these other SSDs that come out. My 980 Pro actually can go up to 7,000 megabytes a second. So I've essentially future-proofed my investment because now as technology improves, and let's say ACASIS drops another enclosure in the future that's faster, I can now just get the new enclosure and swap the NVMe, which is now saving me money versus getting a whole other full-fledged SSD. Or on the flip side, let's say you get a cheaper NVMe first because that just works for your workflow, and then you can upgrade as demands increase. That will cost significantly less than just going for another full-fledged SSD. There's more flexibility, I feel, going this route. And this is coming from someone who has purchased a lot of drives in the past. So here's my bottom line. The ACASIS Thunderbolt 5 SSD enclosure is an absolute beast for creators. It strikes the perfect balance between speed, portability, and design. This could be the best SSD for editing in my opinion, whether you're working on a Mac or a PC, in the office or on the go. And as far as quirks, the only one that really makes me nervous is if you move it around while it's plugged in, you can actually hear the fan scraping against the case. And it makes me nervous because, you know, what if there's a sudden movement or if the drive happens to drop, will that damage the fan or any other part of the SSD in the enclosure? But so far, nothing like that has happened. And the fan does do a good job at keeping the enclosure from getting too hot. And it also stays really quiet. I've never heard it even once spinning or anything unless I move it around and I hear the scraping. And other than that, I really love everything else about this thing. It's fast, the design is really cool. It's been my main editing drive for the past few months, and it will continue to be for the foreseeable future. So yeah, if you think you can benefit from adding the ACASIS 80 gigabit a second NVMe enclosure to your setup, definitely check out the link in my description to grab yours. Also, before doing that, make sure your computer actually supports Thunderbolt 5. So for Macs, that's anyone that has an M4 Pro chip and up. I'm not as familiar with available PCs, so you'll have to do your own research on that. But that's it for this video. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later.